All right, let's get right into it. For almost 80 years now, there's one name that's become a symbol for Hollywood's darkest, most buried secrets. It is a case that has sparked an absolute firestorm of theories, books, and movies, but it has never, ever produced a killer. This is the story of the Black Dahlia, probably America's most infamous and chilling cold case. I want you to picture this. The date is January 15th, 1947. It's a cold, crisp morning in a quiet, still developing neighborhood in Los Angeles. A woman is about to make a discovery that will change everything. She finds a body, a woman's body, cut cleanly in two right at the waist. But what's even more disturbing, even more bizarre, is that the body has been completely drained of blood. Every last drop. And then it was washed, leaving her skin this ghostly, almost porcelain white. And then there was her face. It was carved, from the corner of her mouth all the way to her ears, into this grotesque, permanent smile. So the woman who found her, her name was Betty Berzinger, and she was just out for a morning walk with her 3-year-old daughter. At first glance, she actually thought it was a discarded store mannequin. I mean, who would think otherwise? But the horrifying reality of what she was looking at kicked off one of the biggest manhunts in LAPD history, and a mystery that, to this day, has never been solved. And that right there is what makes this crime so incredibly chilling. It wasn't just a murder, it was a performance. There was absolutely no blood at the scene, which meant she was killed somewhere else, meticulously prepared, and then brought here. Her body was deliberately posed with her arms up over her head. The killer wasn't just trying to hide a crime. No, they were creating a gruesome public spectacle for the entire world to see. Well, the press immediately jumped on the story and they dubbed her the Black Dahlia, a name that would go down in history. But before the legend, before the ghost story, there was a person, a 22-year-old woman named Elizabeth Short. And to really understand this case, you have to understand who she really was.
Now, this is where the story gets really twisted, because there's this huge gap between who people thought she was and who she actually was. The newspapers painted this picture of her as a mysterious, man-crazy party girl, a real femme fatale. The truth? It was so much more tragic. She wasn't some glamorous seductress. She was a vulnerable young woman who was often completely broke and effectively homeless. You know, her whole life was just marked by one hardship after another. Her own father abandoned the family during the Depression by faking his suicide. She had these chronic health problems that even required surgery. And yeah, she did come to Hollywood chasing a dream, but that whole aspiring actress narrative, that was mostly made up by the media to sell papers. The reality was she was drifting between cheap rooms, totally broke, and just relying on anyone who would show her a little bit of kindness to get by. So what happened in her final days? This timeline shows us everything we know. She was last seen alive in the lobby of the famous Biltmore Hotel on January 9th. And then, poof, she vanishes. For nearly an entire week, nobody knows where she is. Investigators call this the missing week, and it's widely believed that she was held captive and tortured during this time, before her body was so horrifically displayed in that vacant lot. The discovery of Elizabeth's body just unleashed this absolute media frenzy. The investigation became the largest in the city's history, but it also quickly spun out of control. It turned into a total circus that, honestly, probably destroyed any real chance of ever finding the person responsible. Just look at this number. It's insane. Over 500 people falsely confessed to this murder. 500. Most of them were just men desperate for their 15 minutes of fame. This flood of lies completely buried the police, making it almost impossible to find any genuine clues under this just avalanche of deception. Right from the very beginning, all the evidence seemed to be pointing in one very specific, very terrifying direction. The sheer precision of the mutilations led the LAPD to ask a truly chilling question. Were they hunting for someone with a medical degree? And it's in the forensic details that the profile of the killer really starts to take shape. Her body was severed with a technique called a hemicorporectomy, a very precise cut between two vertebrae that surgeons actually practice. Parts of her organs were also surgically removed. This wasn't some frenzied, passionate attack. No, this was the calculated, clean work of someone with advanced knowledge of human anatomy. Almost certainly a doctor, or maybe a medical student. This profile led police to look at a lot of people, but one suspect has always stood out: Dr. George Hodel,
a brilliant but incredibly sinister physician. And his home, the Sowden House, was just as strange as he was. It was designed to look like this Mayan temple, a fortress with inward-facing rooms, the perfect place to commit a horrific crime in total privacy. Decades later, a cadaver dog actually alerted to the scent of human remains in the basement, suggesting this architectural marvel might have actually been a house of horrors. And as if the crime itself wasn't theatrical enough, the killer started to communicate. A package was mailed to the press. Inside, Elizabeth's social security card and some of her other belongings. Letters followed, some of them made from cut-out newspaper headlines, and they were signed by the Black Dahlia Avenger. He was playing a game with everyone. So the killer was never caught. The case was never officially closed. But it didn't just go away. It morphed from a news story into a permanent American myth, casting this long, dark shadow over the supposed city of dreams. And this is really why this case still matters so much. Before this, Hollywood's image was this shiny dream factory. The Dahlia murder just ripped that entire facade away. It cemented this idea of Hollywood Babylon, a place of incredible corruption and scandal hiding just beneath the glamorous surface. It basically created the blueprint for Hollywood noir, a world where dreams and nightmares are practically the same thing. What's so fascinating is seeing how the city itself has just grown up and changed right on top of the crime scene. The vacant lot where she was found, it's now a suburban home with a perfect manicured lawn. The Biltmore Hotel is still a landmark, but now it's famously haunted by her legend. And the Sowden House, the possible murder site, it gets rented out for high-end parties and film shoots. The city has literally paved over its dark history. But the story refuses to be buried. And because of that, this case has had so many different lives. It started as a police file, a cold case. Then it became the foundation for a whole genre of noir literature. That, in turn, fueled this global obsession with true crime. And now, well, now it has a digital afterlife, with thousands of internet sleuths on Reddit and YouTube trying to solve this unsolvable crime from their keyboards. Which brings us to one last tantalizing question. Yeah, a lot of the original evidence is gone. But could modern science finally do what 1940s policing just couldn't? With all the advances we have in genetic genealogy, the same science that caught the Golden State Killer, is it possible? Could a single cell of DNA from the glue on a postage stamp finally give the Black Dahlia Avenger his real name? After all this time, the ghost of Elizabeth Short is still waiting for justice.